I want to talk about a screenplay I'm writing, and I want to talk about the books, the 3 books on which this screenplay is based. It's screenplay number 2, actually, in the trilogy, the Emeralda Trilogy. It's about a ship named the Emeralda. The first Emeralda was made in the 1500s on the north coast of Spain, designed by a man and his brother. And that theme roughly parallels the story of the SS United States, also designed by 2 brothers. The SS United States was the only cruise ship, passenger ship, made in America and flown under the American flag. It was also the longest ship ever made. It was several feet longer than the SS Missouri battleship. Its history is going on. It is mothballed now, out of service, but supported by a club kind of preservation society. But that's another story. The first Emeralda was built, as I said, in the 1500s, and it was a frigate, and it had the unusual design of a bulbous bow. That's a long story in itself, but it made her very fast. So fast that it was known for its speedy crossing of the Atlantic. It was known to be able to outrun pirate ships, and its fate came in the Great Armada as the ship was commandeered by Prince Philip, is that right? Prince Philip, I think, and sent north to defeat the British Navy. That was unsuccessful, and the Emeralda, the first Emeralda, was torn up so badly that they had to beach the ship, otherwise it would have sunk, and then beached it somewhere around what is today Santander. I guess it was Santander then, too. Anyway, that was the end of the Emeralda I. Emeralda II picks up hundreds of years later when a young architect was on his honeymoon, and he saw the wreck, what remained of the wreckage, some pieces of wood, basically, and his bride happened to be a descendant of the first architect and his brother, and she told him that, oh yes, that was my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather's ship, the Emeralda, and I happen to have the plans for it in my dowry. That set about the inspired use of the bulbous bow, and the new architect made Emeralda II. And that is the book, the second in my trilogy, that the screenplay I'm working on now is part of. It's a convoluted story, and I enjoy it. I think about it a lot. And it is the source, it was actually, should say, sourced on a press that I designed. I'm an etcher and a teacher, and I designed a perfect press for teaching and making wonderful prints, but very small. It was a tiny press. In fact, today they call it a toy, called the Mini Halfwood Press, and it had the unusual features of being half wood and half steel, because I'm fascinated by that combination. I saw it in Rembrandt's museum and other places where printing presses were designed in the 16th, 17th century with wood parts mixed up and combined with steel parts. Anyway, I designed my Halfwood presses to be beautiful and functional, to please myself, basically. But it turned out that pleased other people, and I partnered with a man, and together we made about 250 of them and sold them around the world. When I was making these presses, people asked me, where did you come up with that design? And I had a hard time answering that. It just sort of popped into my head. I like wood, I like metal, I like beautiful things, I like printing presses, and this press combined all those factors. But that wasn't satisfactory. I wanted to entertain these people with a better story than that. And so I made up a story. I said that it was the presses that were in the hold of this ill-fated ship, the Emeralda II, on its way to China to introduce this type of Western technology to the, what do they call, the Chinese people. And the plan was to trade. It was a trading venture. But a tsunami came when they were harbored in what is now called the San Juan Islands, or the Canadian islands between Vancouver Island and Canada. It was sunk. It was crashed. It was blown to bits by the tsunami. And all the presses in the hold went to the bottom of a lagoon, or a cove. And in my story, this fantasy that I tell people when they ask me where I got the idea, I said, well, a diver found parts of these presses and put them in a museum in Bellingham, and I was invited to come and try to help figure out what they were. And I said, yes, they are parts of an etching press. And from those parts, I re-engineered, or what's it called? Re-engineered backward chaining to what the press must have looked like, and that's the Halfwood Press. In fact, here's one right here. I'll switch my video. That's a Halfwood Press. One of the last ones. Anyway, as I was saying, that's the core of my current screenplay. The third of the trilogy takes place in the 20th century, in the 1980s and 1990s. And it is semi-biographical, and it is a screenplay. In fact, I'm standing right here, and I can pull out a copy called Swipe. And screenplays are not normally bound like this. They usually are loose leaf, held together with little clips, but I was so proud of mine, and I love the kind of books that you can write today with the self-publishing services like Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing. And so I bound up my screenplay together with the backstory and all kinds of little details, including the story I just told about the first Emeralda that was crashed, that was ruined in the war between Spain and England. So I've talked for over 9 minutes now, and so I have to limit myself. And I just wanted to talk about the 3 books, the Emeralda Trilogy. Emeralda I took place in the 1500s. Emeralda II took place in the 1700s. And the third book is a contemporary story and reflects back. There are pieces in the third story that occur in the telling of the first story. In other words, it goes clear back to the second Emeralda in the 1700s. But I like to leave you hanging there, wondering what the connections are. And it's my job as an artist and a writer and a user of technologies to tell you some other time, with the help of a lot of other people. I hope it will succeed. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Bill Ritchie. Oh, there's the camera. There's the camera. Bye-bye.